Welcome back. So this is the last video for the first chapter of 12th class NCERT back exercise chemistry. That is, the chapter is the solid state. So in this very video, I will be taking up all the 6 questions that have been left. That is question number 21 to question number 26. Now let us see what is the statement for question number 21 and let's just quickly solve it. All right. So the statement for question number 1.21. It is gold whose atomic radius of gold has been given 0.144 nanometer. It crystallizes in face-centered unit cell. So face-centered cubic unit cell, it arranges itself in that. What is the length of the side of the cell? We need to find out the edge length. Okay, so we need to find A. So now for all the different types of cubic unit cells, we have relationships between A and R that were derived. Okay. So here, for this case, R is equal to A upon 2 root 2. We need to find out A. So A will be equal to R multiplied by 2 root 2, 0.144 into 2 root 2. So it will be, let's just quickly calculate it, 0.144 multiplied by 2 root 2. So it is coming out to be equal to 0.4073 nanometer. So it is in nanometer, it will be in nanometer. So it is up to third decimal place. Here you can just keep it up to 7. Okay, just you can drop this 3. All right. Now let us move into the next question. That is question number 22. Let's see what is question number 22. Question number 22 is, in terms of band theory, what is the difference between a conductor and an insulator? Okay, so there are 2 parts to this question. The first part is we need to tell according to the band theory. Band theory is when we consider a conduction band and a valence band. Okay, so according to band theory, what is the difference between conductor and an insulator? This is the first part. So if we consider a conductor, the valence band and the conduction band, they are either very close to each other or they are overlapping. There is either very small energy difference or there's literally they are overlapping. So you can just write this simple difference that either the energy gap between the two, that is the valence band and the conduction band, is very, very small, or they are overlapping with each other. Okay, but when we are talking about the insulator, there will be a large energy gap between the conduction band and the valence band. So there is large gap. So for the electrons to cover this gap, a large amount of energy is needed. So they do not, that energy cannot be, covered by any means. So they are insulators. They do not conduct electricity. The second part of this question is, in terms of band theory, we need to tell what is the difference between a conductor and a semiconductor. So in case of a conductor, we have already understood that either the energy gap is going to be very small or it will be overlapping or very small. But in case of semiconductors, the energy gap will be there. There will be energy gap more than that of the conductors, but less than that of insulator. Okay, so we need to just compare the conductor and the semiconductor. So you just can write that in case of conductor, the gap is either very small or they are overlapping, or in case of semiconductor, the gap is more than in case of conductor. All right, so let us now move into question number 23. Let's see what is the statement for question number 23. Explain the following terms with suitable examples. Okay, the first one is Schottky defect. Schottky defect. So what happens is, sometimes in the crystal, it is a type of metal defect. What happens inside the crystal, the ions will be missing. The number of cations and number of anions missing will be the same. Okay, suppose we are considering sodium and chloride ions are there and sodium ions are there. So they are of almost equal size. In Schottky defect, you need to keep it in mind that the anion and the cation, they will be of similar size. Okay, normally we know that cation is smaller than the anion, but here in case of Schottky defect, those anion and cations will be present together in the crystal, which are of similar size. And what will happen? Some of the cations and some of the anions will be missing from the crystal lattice, from certain sites. Okay, suppose I'm just not drawing the anion here. It is missing from this place. Okay. To maintain the electrical neutrality, what will happen? A cation will also be missing from some other position. So suppose here the cation is missing. So these type of defects are known as Schottky defects, in which the number of cations missing is equal to number of anions missing. And it happens in those cases where the size of the cation and anion is similar. Okay, for example, NaCl, KCl, cesium chloride, AgBr. Now AgBr is the special case because it will show the Schottky defect as well as the Frankel defect that we are going to discuss next, because the second part is the Frankel defect. So hope you have understood. Now because these are missing, the density of the crystal will decrease. Density of crystal will decrease. Okay, now let us move into the Frankel defect. Now in case of Frankel defect, what will happen? The size of the cation and anion will have a large difference. Okay, so cation will be of smaller size because cations are smaller size. We know the reason that is discussed in the periodic properties. Okay, so cation will be small, anion will be quite big as compared to the cation. So we can just draw it like this. Now what will happen? The cation, it will move from its original place. Suppose we are taking it like this. Suppose it is missing from this place. This is vacant. Okay. And what it will do, it will take up some interstitial site. So it will cover some interstitial space. Suppose the interstitial space which is present here, it is occupied by this cation. Okay, now what will happen here? A vacancy will be created. So this is the vacancy defect. And here the interstitial defect is there because it is lying at the interstitial site. So it will happen in those cases where the size of the cation and anion, they have large difference. So AgCl, AgBr, AgI, they will show Frankel defect. Okay, AgBr, it shows both the defects. Now in this case, there will be no impact on the density. Density will remain the same because there is no missing anion or cation. No ion is missing, all the ions are there in the crystal, but the position is not the normal position, but it is taking the interstitial site. All right, let us now move into the next part of this question. I'm just clearing my screen off so that I can just write the solution for next one. Okay, interstitials. What are interstitials? Interstitials means here interstitial defects. Interstitial defects. Sometimes what happens is, suppose we have a crystal which is composed of atoms or molecules. Extra atoms or extra molecules will be present at the interstitial sites. Suppose this is the metal. Okay, and we can just draw 3-4 layers like this. Okay, now there are interstitial sites here, some atoms of the same molecule, same crystal. It is not some foreign atom, it is the atoms of the substance itself. They are taking, there are extra atoms or extra molecules which are taking the interstitial sites. Okay, so here what will happen? Density increases. So this type of defect is known as interstitial defect. Okay, let's now move into What is the next one? It is F centers, very, very important and very interesting. F centers. Now, sometimes what happens is it is because of metal excess defect. Metal excess defect. Metal is the positive ion because positive ions will be derived from the metals. So positive ion will be more than the number of negative ions. So metal will be in excess in the crystal lattice. Okay, now we can just simply consider NaCl crystal. Now in NaCl crystal, if I say this is Na positive and this is Cl negative, we can just extend it to some extent, you can take it. Okay, suppose this is the chloride ion position, you can just fill it up. Okay, so you can draw more rows of ions here. Suppose this is the position of a chloride ion in between the lattice. Okay, now what we are doing is we are heating NaCl in the presence of sodium vapors. We have sodium vapors and we are heating in presence of NaCl in presence of sodium vapor. Now what will happen? When the sodium atoms, they will get heated up, what will happen? They will get ionized. Sodium ion will be formed. It will release one electron. Now, where is this process happening? It is happening at the surface of the crystal. At the surface of the crystal, this is happening. Now, what will happen? This chloride, any chloride from the crystal, it will move to the surface and it will combine with Na positive. So here what will happen? At the surface itself, Na positive plus Cl negative, it will form NaCl. Now what is left behind? This electron. Now the crystal is having 1 unit negative positive charge on it, but actually the crystals, they are supposed to be electrically neutral. To maintain the electrical neutrality, what will happen? This electron, it will move to this position, which was left blank by the chloride ion. It will move to this position. Now, this is known as F center. And this is responsible for the color of the crystals. Responsible for color of crystals. So the NaCl crystals are yellow in color because of these F centers. KCl crystals are violet in color because of these F centers, because when KCl will be heated in the presence of potassium vapor, this similar thing will happen there also. Chloride will leave its space. Here K positive will be formed and chloride will combine with it. The electron will move to the place from where the chloride has moved. That is known as F center. Okay, so let us now move into the next question and see what is the statement for it. It is question number 24, 1.24. Aluminium crystallizes in cubic closed pack structure. Its metallic radius is 125 picometer. Okay, radius is 125 picometer and CCP structure is there. Cubic closed pack structure is there. What is the length of the side of the unit cell? So we need to find out A. Second part of this question is how many unit cells are there in 1.00 centimeter cube of aluminium? We need to find out the number of unit cells in 1 centimeter cube. First of all, let us find what is the value of A. So for CCP arrangement, R is equal to A upon 2 root 2. So A will be equal to 125 multiplied by 2 root 2. So it will be equal to, 125 multiplied by 2 root 2. It is coming out to be equal to 353.5 picometer. Now from here we can find out the volume. But the thing is, we have been given the volume to be equal to 1.00 centimeter cube. In this much volume, we need to find out what will be the number of unit cells present. But this is coming out to be in picometer. So before making the further calculations, we need to convert this into centimeter. Okay, so I just can write 353.5 picometer is equal to 353.5 picometer multiplied by, first I will be converting it into meter. So I can just write, if I need to keep meter with me and I need to cancel picometer. Okay, so I will keep picometer below. So here 1 picometer, 10 raised to the power minus 12 meter. Multiplied by, now we need to convert this meter into centimeter. Okay, so here I can write 1 meter, here I can write 100 centimeter. So this will get cancelled, and let us now see what is the result. 353.5 multiplied by 10 raised to the power minus 10 centimeter. So this will be the edge length in centimeter. Okay, from here we can find out what will be the volume of 1 unit cell. So volume of 1 unit cell will be equal to A cube equal to 353.5 into 10 raised to the power minus 10 centimeter whole cube. So it will come out to be equal to 353.5 cube. It is 44174,155.3 into 10 raised to the power minus 30 centimeter cube. We can just convert this into scientific notation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we are moving the decimal point 7 places towards the left, so the power will get added. So if you don't know how to make these conversions, it is the 11th class part. So I have discussed it in my videos where I have discussed the solutions to 11th class NCERT. So in, I think, first and the second chapter, both were having these kind of calculations. So it will be, I'm moving it towards the left hand side, power will get added, it will become minus 23 centimeter cube. Okay, now this is the volume of 1 unit cell. This means we can just write 4.42 into 10 raised to the power minus 23 centimeter cube is equal to 1 unit cell. Therefore, 1 centimeter cube is equal to 1 upon 4.42 into 10 raised to the power minus 23 centimeter cube into 1 centimeter cube. It will be equal to, so 1 divided by 4.42. So it is coming out to be equal to 0.226 into 10 raised to the power 23 or 2.26 into 10 raised to the power 22 unit cells. So these many unit cells will be there in 1 centimeter cube. Okay, hope this is clear to you. And let us now move into the next question, that is question number 25. So the question number 25 is, if NaCl is doped with 10 raised to the power minus 3 mole percent of strontium chloride. Okay, so 10 raised to the power minus 3 mole percent of strontium chloride. What is the concentration of cation vacancy? Concentration of cation vacancies. Very simple and interesting question. Okay, just now see it carefully and take notes. First of all, let us consider the NaCl crystal. Okay, so we have Na positive, we have Cl negative, Na positive, Cl negative, Cl negative, Na positive, Cl negative, Na positive. Now what I have done is, they are saying that in place of sodium ions, strontium will be there. Okay, chloride is common. If chloride is replacing chloride, it will not make any difference. Okay, so we will be considering the replacement of sodium with strontium 2 positive ions. Suppose at this place, strontium 2 positive has come. All right, now to maintain the electrical neutrality, what will happen? Sodium is having 1 unit positive charge, strontium is having 2 units of positive charge. For every one strontium, 2 Na positive will be going. Okay, so here Cl negative, Na positive, Cl negative. I say this, that other sodium ion, it is leaving from this place. This means the number of cationic vacancies produced will be equal to the number of strontium ions that are replacing sodium ions. Hope this is clear to you. So concentration of cation vacancies will be equal to concentration of strontium 2 positive ions. Okay, so now what is the concentration of strontium 2 positive? Concentration of strontium 2 positive is equal to 10 raised to the power minus 3 mole percent. Now it is mole percent. Now if we want to calculate it in mole, it will be equal to 10 raised to the power minus 3 upon 100 mole. So this will be the concentration of the strontium ions as well as the concentration of the cation vacancies. Hope this is clear to you. And let us now move into the very last question of this very chapter. That is question number 26. Question number 1.26. Okay, let's see, what is it? Okay, it is a theoretical question. Not actually, I don't find it very good to do the theoretical questions. Still, I will be explaining it to you. Okay. Explain the following with suitable examples. Okay, number 1 is ferromagnetism. Ferromagnetism. Now, what is ferromagnetism? If we are talking about a substance which is very, strongly attracted towards the magnetic field, substances which are very strongly attracted towards the magnetic field are called ferromagnetic substances. Ferromagnetic substances. Okay. Now what happens is, suppose we have metal ions. Okay. What will happen? The metal ions, they will get grouped into regions which are known as domains. So we have, suppose the ferromagnetic substances, these examples are iron, nickel, gadolinium is also example. Then chromium oxide. So these are the examples of the ferromagnetic substances that they will be very strongly attracted towards the magnetic field. Domains are formed, that is, these ions of the metals, they will be arranging themselves in specific regions, and those arrangements of the specific regions, they are known as domains. Okay. Now suppose we have not applied any kind of magnetic field. When no magnetic field is applied, what happens is the domains are randomly oriented. Domains are randomly oriented in any direction. So the net magnetic moment or the net magnetic effect is equal to 0, or net magnetism is equal to 0 because of the domains. Now then what happens is, when magnetic field is applied, these domains arrange themselves in the direction of the magnetic field like this. Now they show magnetism. Now these substances, they become magnetic. Even after the removal of the magnetic field, they will be having this arrangement of the domains, which will lead to magnetism in these metals. This is what we call as ferromagnetism. That is, the substance will be strongly attracted towards the magnetic field, and there will be the domains will be aligning in the direction of the magnetic field, and even after the removal of the magnetic field, there will be the alignment of domains which leads to the magnetism in the metals. This is what we call as ferromagnetism. Okay, let us now move into next. It is paramagnetism. So paramagnetism is when there are certain substances which are weakly attracted by the magnetic field. Paramagnetism weakly attracted by the magnetic field. Okay, so they have, you just can write these are weakly attracted by the magnetic field and they have unpaired electrons in their atoms. Unpaired electrons in atoms. So they will be having magnetic dipole moments. Okay. All right, those substances will be known as paramagnetic substances. They will be attracted weakly towards the magnetic field, towards the applied magnetic field, and they will be having the unpaired electrons. Okay, then the next one is the ferrimagnetism. Ferrimagnetism. Now, in this case, what will happen in ferromagnetism, all the domains, they are getting aligned in the direction of the magnetic field. Okay, in this case, what will happen? The domains will be aligning in the direction of magnetic field as well as opposite to the direction of magnetic field, but in unequal numbers. The number of domains which are aligned in the parallel direction to the magnetic field and the number of domains which are aligned in the anti-parallel direction, it will be unequal. Okay, so there will be net magnetic effect. There will be net magnetic effect. The next one is the antiferromagnetism. Antiferromagnetism. Now, what will happen in this case? That the number of domains which are aligned in the direction of magnetic field and which are aligned in the opposite direction of magnetic field, it will be equal. Equal number of domains in parallel direction, equal number of domains in anti-parallel direction. Okay, so the net effect, net magnetism of the substance will be equal to 0. All right, next is 12, 16 and 13, 15 group compounds. 12, 16, 13, 15 group element compounds. Okay. So in this case, what we need to consider is we are considering the compounds which are formed by the combination of group 12 elements and group 16 elements. The compounds which are formed by the combination of group 12 and group 16 elements, they are known as group 12, 16 elements. Okay, now the group 12 is the D block elements, the last group of D block elements, zinc, cadmium, mercury. Okay, so from here we will be taking, suppose we are taking zinc. The 16 group elements are the oxygen family, oxygen, sulfur, okay, selenium, tellurium and polonium. All right, so here we can just combine zinc and sulfur, zinc sulfide. So zinc sulfide is the group 12, 16 compound. Okay, similarly you can take cadmium sulfide. This is group 12, 16 compound. Similarly, you can take the group 13 and group 15 element and combine them. Just like group 13 is the boron family. Boron, aluminium, gallium, indium, thallium. Okay. Then group 15 is nitrogen family, nitrogen, phosphorus and all. Okay. So here you can just take the example of gallium combining with arsenic. This is the example of group 13, 15 compounds. Simple. Okay. So it is nothing magic or nothing like tough something. 13, 15 means one element we are taking from the 13 group and one we are taking from the 15th group. 12, 16 means we are taking one element from the 12th group and other from the 16th group, combining them to form the compound that is group 12, 16 compound. All right, so this is the last video for the first chapter of 12th class NCERT chemistry, the solid state. Hope you have got a lot of conceptual clarity. If you have doubts, you can just write in the comment section below. And if you are interested in learning from me in my live online classes, then just see the description and reach out to me. See the description of this very video. All right, so thank you very much for being here. Bye-bye. I will see you in the next videos with next chapter. Thank you.